Hello and welcome back to another episode of my MotoGP 22 career mode, and today we're here for the second and third rounds of our Moto2 season at Indonesia and Argentina. So if you haven't seen the last episode, I do recommend you go check that one out before getting into this one, because we had our first race in Moto2 at Qatar. It was a pretty decent weekend, so I do recommend you go check that one out before we get into this one. But first thing we need to do, of course, is advance forward to the Indonesian Grand Prix. Just 1 week away, and we've actually got a lot of notifications here on the contract management all of a sudden. 8 notifications. I imagine that's the rest of the Moto2 teams being interested in me now. No, it's MotoGP teams. Oh wow, okay, I wasn't expecting that. I was expecting it to go to all the Moto2 teams, but they're already all got high proposals, so perhaps that changed during the off-season, but before there were some teams that weren't interested. But we've now actually got MotoGP teams interested, so we've got Aprilia Racing, Gresini Racing, RNF Yamaha, Muni VR46, and LCR Honda. So that's quite interesting, to be honest. So we've already got some MotoGP teams there, and of course we've got some of the fake teams as well. We've got KTM, Ducati, and Aprilia. So not too bad overall there then. We've actually got a couple of MotoGP teams interested already, so it looks like we definitely will be going into MotoGP regardless of what happens for the rest of this season. But now we've got the Indonesian Grand Prix right ahead of us. I'm not exactly sure what to expect because, of course, this is still a new circuit to the calendar. We did have it in Moto3, of course, but I've not raced it on anything else really other than the Moto3 bike. Done a couple of GP races online in it, but I've not raced AI there except in that one Moto3 race I did. So it'll be interesting to see how it pans out. Obviously, I've got to try and pick up the track again because it's been probably about a month since I played the track now, so it's been a fair while. There might be a bit of a different beast in Moto2 as well, so I just guess we'll have to see. So then, at the end of the first free practice session here in Mandalika, I've ended up in 5th position. So similar to Qatar, we've not actually topped the timesheets, but honestly I had to push so hard even to get that time. Only 2/10 off the top time though, so I'm liking that. We're looking pretty competitive still, regardless of the fact that we're not actually on the top spot. But I've used a lot of tyres in this session, I'm not going to lie. I really wanted to get through to qualifying too. I really pushed, I had to keep trying to get on the back of different AI, use power mode through on a couple of different occasions, and I managed to string one pretty good lap together there, the 34.4. So I reckon it is going to be pretty tough going in qualifying. Obviously our nearest championship rival, Augusto Fernandez, is sat there in 3rd position, so he's the target really to try and beat going into the next session, although it's so early on in the season that anyone could be a rival, so I'm not really looking at anyone too much, but he is the closest one technically to the championship, so I want to be around where he is. So we'll head into qualified 2 now. I'm hoping we should go straight through because we're 5th in this session. Barring any weird issues with the simulated times, I reckon we should be fine. So I was actually quite mistaken with that. So I did all the laps in practice and we still haven't even gone through anyway. So I'm going to have to do it the hard way now. Go into Q2 through this session. And honestly, that is going to be a tough thing to do because I've not got that many tyres left. Obviously, I want to save a set of tyres for the race. So I've got 2 sets of softs left. So I can obviously use 1 for each qualifying session. But that also means I only have 1 shot at actually doing this lap. So that's not ideal. So I'm going to try and get on the back of an AI maybe, because clearly I don't actually have the pace. But it's interesting, you see in front of us we've got Ramirez top of this session currently. So he was 3rd place in that first free practice session. So it tells you how much they've improved, because he was, well actually I think he might have ended up 4th. But he was 3rd when I sort of ended it. And he's ended up in this session too. Navarro was just behind me. So it does show you that the time probably isn't that bad, but they're very, very close on the timings, and probably the fact that FP2 and 3 probably have a bit more grip on the track help them improve. So getting ready to start our lap here. I'm hoping it's a good one because we've only really got 1 try at this because the tyres will be pretty second-hand after this lap. So the 34.5 out the box. That's not good enough. Zonta's currently top, but I'm 3/10 off that. So I'm not actually last place on the grid. So I'm really going to have to improve. If I can't improve on this lap, I'm going to have to go for a new set of tyres. So unfortunately, we've not quite improved on this lap. I was underneath the time through parts of the lap, but it wasn't enough. So we're going to have to come back in the pits, put on a new set of softs, and give it another go. Because otherwise, we are going to be back at the grid. So I think it's worth using that set of tyres, because I don't think we're going to get through to Q2 anyway. So there we are then. We're only going to get a couple more attempts at this. We're on the back of Corsi, so he might be a good reference for me. Through the last corner, we've done a pretty good lap up towards the line. Is this going to be enough? It is! It's top! We've actually managed to top the session in the dying seconds. Well, actually, there's 2 minutes left, but we've just managed to do it. Pretty much my final attempt there. Well, that's much quicker than we've gone all weekend at 33.6. Really hooked that one up. It really helped to follow Corsi. We're red in the first 2 sectors. Really did the last sector quite well. I've actually found a bit of a different way to do that last sector, so that's interesting. Sector 3 I did lose a couple of attempts, but nothing major. So, might be in a better position here. because we've secured probably at least 18th place on the grid there, but of course we're still going to want a lot better than that, but it's going to be tough in the next session because we're not actually going to have any fresh softs to use. So then we've got those tyres on, we've got 57% on the rear right and 61% on the front right, so that's probably enough to do a lap, but we'll see. I probably will run out of grip before the end of it, but I've got to try it because the softs do seem like the better tyre to use in Moto2 qualifying. So here we are starting our lap here in qualified 2. We are behind a fast rider here. We've got Caddick just in front of us, so he should be a good marker. So coming up towards the line then. What's this time going to be? 34.3 for Kubo, top currently. I've stood at 34.5. Caddick did 34.1, so we're currently set 5th place, but I went over a second quicker than that in the, well, about a second quicker than that in the previous session, so yeah, I've still got a bit of time to find, but these obviously were worn soft tyres, so it's not too bad to start off with. So we've now actually been demoted to 14th place, 7/10 off the top time, so if I can replicate what I did in the previous session, I'll actually be on pole position, which would be pretty crazy considering the lack of pace I've had all weekend. Honestly, I want to just try and get in the top 10. I'd be happy with that because we saw in Qatar I can make a good start off the line, and in the race I think it'll be a bit closer. I also know the race will be really short because obviously in Moto3 last year it was short for some reason. So I'm actually behind Acosta on this lap because Ben Schneider went to the pits. And of course I do need a good tow. Acosta's took on 3rd place, so he's probably on an in lap. But even still he'll be a good marker with that kind of time. Out the last corner, coming up towards the line. 4 tenths, half a second. Half a second improvement where that's going to put me. 8th place. You know what, I'll take that. Considering how much we've struggled all weekend. 8th place on a medium as well, 34 dead. I'll absolutely take that, so thank you Pedro, that definitely helped out quite a lot, because I was actually red in, I think, Sector 2, I think it was. I was actually red going through that sector, so it is super close. So then, at the end of the session, yes, I actually was still in 8th position, so unfortunately we haven't met the qualifying objectives. As you can see there, they want us to get on the 2nd row. But I've met my objective. I wanted to get in the top 10 because, well, I went through Q1 and it looked like I was going to start back of the grid probably about 10 minutes ago. So I'll absolutely take 8th place on the grid. We know if we can make a good start, we can be up there with the AI. A little bit unfortunate to be out-qualified by a teammate by a couple of tenths of a second as well. But you know what? It's not the end of the world. Like I said, if we can get a good start, we should put a battle up there with them. It really is interesting to see Filip Salac on pole position. So we'll have to see how he gets on in the race. Perhaps he will choke, obviously being a rookie to the class. We'll have to see how it goes. Pedro Acosta up there as well. You can definitely see where they've sort of inherited their performances from their sort of counterparts from last year. Sam Lowe's the only one that's really a bit of an outlier. He's quite far down the order, down in 18th place. Dixon pretty far down there as well, and Agora not doing too well, and Canet as well. So not really the most realistic rider lineups here for some reason, but that's the MotoGP game for you sometimes. But we'll head into the race now then. I'm going to go with mediums, I think, in the race. The tyres probably will be fairly crucial, but like I said, it's probably not going to be a super long race, so it might not matter too much. So here we are down on the grid then, looking at Somkhiat Chantra as I select my medium tyres. So Chantra really got that early season form. Obviously, he won this race in real life, so we'll have to see. Maybe he will also win the race in the game. We'll have to find out as the race goes on, of course. Quick check, it is a 5-lap race, so as I thought, it is a little bit short. Obviously, Qatar was 6 laps, but Qatar was also a 2-minute lap, whereas this track is a 1 minute 30. So it's a little bit weird here. Hopefully, well, I say hopefully Milestone will fix it, but I can't remember how long the actual races were here in real life, so perhaps they are just shorter. But even still, we've got 5 laps ahead of us then, same as everybody else. Medium should be fine. We've got to get off to one hell of a start. We should be able to sort of get and mix it with AI if we can get off the line pretty well.
With the sighting lap safely negotiated, the lights will go out in a few seconds, and the Indonesian Grand Prix will get underway.
Salac on pole position then alongside him, Chantra, and then our championship rival currently, Fernandez on the other side of the front row. Waiting for the lights to go out here then at Mandalika. Lights out and away we go. And once again we have made a good start compared to the AI. The AI really slow off the start. Apparently that's something that Milestone are going to fix in the next patch as we go down towards the first corner. Salac still leads. We're in second place however. Is anyone going to come to the inside? Not quite. So can we try and attack Salac in these early stages, try to take the lead from him? Oh, I thought about it then, I really did, and that might have compromised me quite a bit. Chantra tried to go around the outside, it's not really worked. Richie probably could have got the inside of Salac there if I didn't go for that initial move. I'll tell you what, 8th to 2nd, can't complain too much at all. What a start it's been. And to be honest, if we can do this section correctly, the AI are very fast on the entry to this corner, but then they kind of mess it up on the exit, although I've messed up the corner completely, so we picked up a track limits warning, and for that I'm obviously not going to overtake Salac because that would be unfair. I've been penalised obviously by having the warning, but I don't want to also gain advantage by overtaking Salac, so we'll sit behind him for now. I'd say a corner's pass, I'd say it's fair game to try and pass him now. It's To be honest, I don't think I'm going to be able to. Look how much he's pulling away. This is really the AI sector, which you wouldn't think so, considering the lines they take, but I'm just trying to follow him a little bit there, almost off the front on the curb. So we're both pushing pretty hard right from the outset. You can see he's only put half a second into me. So Salach might be absolutely gone already, because I think I'll hold up the rest of these AI slightly, so Salach might have this race won. Oh, Chantra's having a look into the last corner. Somkiat's made a pass on me. It's already down to 3rd place. So it's not been the ideal last sector to the lap, because we lost a lot of time to Salach. And Chantra managed to make a pass on me as well. But if we stay with Chantra, we might be able to actually re-attack him here. And try and get back up into 2nd place. I think this really is showing my lack of pace, because you can see I couldn't keep up with Chantra in that first sector. He pulled away from me. Look how far Salach is now up the road. So I imagine Augusto Fernandez will be levering me out of the way very shortly. I think we're just going to go backwards. This is what I kind of expected to happen in Qatar, to be honest. But in that race it didn't happen. However, on this occasion it seems like it is going to. So we're a second behind Chantra at the end of this lap. Using a little bit of power mode 3, because we've actually got a lot of fuel left. 2 laps complete, 3 to go. If we could just try and keep the pace up, we should be able to finish pretty high up. If I could just not make mistakes, then maybe I could keep Augusto behind. So at the end of this lap then, fastest up to Salach, now fastest up to me, 34.0. So with that power mode 3, I can actually match their pace, but unfortunately, I can't make any inroads on them. Here comes Augusto. Oh, he looks at the inside. On this occasion, the lap hasn't quite been as good. And Fernandez is right behind me. He had a little look into that penultimate turn. I've got a bit wide to the final turn. That's probably going to help Augusto Fernandez out. Here he comes. Oh no, he gets out the power. Fernandez gets out the power. I think I moved over on him slightly by accident. I was just trying to get off the curb. But really, he could still power past. It just seems like the Moto2 AI are not aggressive enough, and they're just really poor off the start. So if Milestone could fix that, that'd be great. We've ran really wide through turn 1 on this occasion. We've got to try this 1 as well. Augusto Fernandez is up the inside. So we've lost that podium spot, but can we get it back? Augusto's a little bit wide. We're at the inside of Augusto now, side by side. Oh, this is getting close. This is going to allow Joe Roberts to close up as well, because he's pretty close behind us both. Oh, Fernandez cutting that inside curb. That's going to cost him. Here we go. We've got the run on Augusto. Should be able to get that past him. There's Palmer 3 and the better line. Coming in clutch. He's on the brakes nice and early. I think I've missed the brakes by quite a bit there. Yes, I have. Is that going to allow back up the inside? No, it's not. So we've got the position on Augusto for now. As we come towards probably my worst sector on the track. He goes on the inside again. Alright. Maybe they are a little bit more aggressive in this race than they were in Qatar. But it still seems like they're very timid, especially compared to the Moto3 AI. I feel like the Moto3 AI would have just levered you out of the way in that scenario. There we go, then I made a big mistake. Augusto's comes through again. Joe Roberts is right there as well, so we're about to get mugged by 2 people. Try to go on the outside of Joe Roberts. Just not going to happen, unfortunately. So we've been passed by 2 people on the final lap. Acosta actually has nudged me out the way, and I'm down! I've been taken down! I think I was because I was on the power slightly, but down we go. What position are we going to be in now? We're going to be... Oh, I've just wheelied off the bike. But we were going to be last place anyway. So what a shame. What a shame the way that race ended. Contact at the penultimate turn. And that was it. It was going to be, well, I was battling for 3rd place. I don't know where I was actually going to finish. But sadly, we were taken down there. And that's not great for our championship hopes. So then, Philip Salach won the race then ahead of Somkiat Chantra in 2nd place. Augusto Fernandez ended up 3rd. Joe Roberts in 4th. Jorge Navarro actually ended up in 5th place, beating Pedro Acosta there. I think Navarro was the cause of all that. He dived at the inside, pushed Acosta into me. And then, I'm not sure whether I sort of crashed as I got on the throttle. I don't know if it's because I got surprised or whether because I actually got touched. I'll have to have a look at that again. But either way, I ended up on the deck, and that's not great for us. We have lost a lot of points there to Augusto Fernandez. So we slipped back to 4th in the championship then. Somkiat Chantra actually leads, tied with Augusto Fernandez in 2nd place. Philip Salach in 3rd, myself in 4th, and Jorge Navarro in 5th position. So fortunately, we're only 11 points off the leader. It could be a lot worse considering we just got knocked off there, but still just not ideal. In the Team Championship then, you can see Idemitsu have actually moved ahead of us in the championship. We're tied with Io as well. So it's a pretty close championship so far, but of course only 2 rounds in. But that's so disappointing because we looked like we were going to be so slow. I found the pace in qualifying, managed to get a good start, rode a pretty good race, made a couple of little mistakes at the end there, and everybody just starts coming up the inside. I got a bit of a touch, and down I went. It just happens sometimes, but that's really unfortunate. The team aren't going to be happy either. I reckon we'll have lost a fair amount of reputation because we failed both objectives this weekend. So then, from that weekend, we actually lost 13,500 reputations. That's quite a lot to lose, which takes us down to 103,500. So we really have lost a lot there. Only just over that 100,000 threshold now. Obviously, we get no credits for achieving none of the objectives, and to be honest, it wasn't a great weekend on the research data either, just because I was struggling for pace so much. I had to just focus on actually getting through to qualifying 2, rather than actually doing the different objectives. I got top speed, I got electronics adjustment, I got gain access to Q2 by obviously going through, but race, obviously best sector time, I don't know what sector that was going to be, but obviously that just didn't happen. Lap by lap, I couldn't do the lap times consistently enough to do it, and clean lap with long lap penalty, similar story really. I was also running out of tyres, so I couldn't just keep throwing tyres at the different practice programs. So we actually have got a couple of notifications here, one on the contract management. It's a new candidate available, so it's not us losing our MotoGP offers. Luca Pelizza, maybe? I'm not really sure that would be pronounced, but looking pretty good, so we'll leave that for now, because obviously we don't need a new contract right now, so there's no point hiring an expensive personal manager. And then on the technical staff, we actually got a data analyst applying, which you don't get too many of. Very good on the frame, loses a little bit on the engine, a little bit on aero, which obviously, is, like I said in the past, is kind of pointless, and loses us 10 on the electronics as well. So not the best, but certainly not the worst, and we could probably balance that out with a decent engine engineer on the other side of the garage, so obviously we could like hire this guy, for example, and it kind of negates it, but we do lose a lot on electronics there because they both lose a couple of points. So yeah, it's worth noting to see what the averages are, just trying to hire some decent staff rather than having them one really strong in one area, try and get them a bit more balanced. Speaking of upgrades, we can actually put on the next engine upgrade, which has come around pretty quick, so we'll stick everybody on that. And that is going to take 4 weeks, so not long actually, to be honest, for that one to come in. So we'll probably get that by the time we go back to Europe. So with all the notifications dealt with there, we'll advance forward. We've got 1 week that takes us to the Argentinian GP. Another notification here on technical staff. It's actually another data analyst. So as I say, there's not many data analysts, but all of a sudden there is. And this one's a much stronger candidate because you can see they improve a lot on the engine, a little on the frame as well. Again, they have aero, which again is kind of pointless, but they do lose us 10 points on the electronics. But again, that's also an area that's not super important. So probably worth actually taking this person into consideration. But again, they're very, very expensive. 84,000 credits, and we only have 287 to our names. So it's a little bit out of our price range for now, but I've got to remember that I've got to sign them before the end of the season. Otherwise, they just don't stay with me. They reset. So I've got to watch out for that. But here we are then, time for the Argentinian GP. We need to bounce back after that one. The pace in Mandalika wasn't actually too bad. It was kind of similar to Qatar really, but I think my Qatar pace was a bit better. But the qualified position was not too dissimilar. The start was pretty similar, to be fair. First few laps, again, was quite similar. I was kind of matching them in areas. I was kind of matching them on the same lap times. But sadly, I cracked a little bit on the last couple of laps. Just trying to sort of cover off. I was pushing in some of the corners to stop Augusto catching me. Made a couple of mistakes, and obviously there was the contact and then the crash at the penultimate turn. So a little bit unfortunate. But if you remember back to last season here, we absolutely dominated this race. So I've got high hopes going into Argentina that we can try and replicate that. But I'll see you after practice, and hopefully we are top of the session. So then, at the end of free practice, I was actually top of the timesheets, as I thought I would be. Obviously, it is turn mass, so a track where the AI are not too strong. We've got half a second over Pedro Acosta in second position, so it's not the absolute leagues that we had in Moto3. It's not quite that big of a gap, but it's still a pretty big one, to be honest. That's a good way to start off the weekend. We managed to achieve pretty much all of the objectives in practice as well. I think there's some that are over the weekend involving using different tyre compounds. I don't think we're going to actually be able to achieve those, sadly, just because of something that is going to happen in the next session, and that is the fact that it's going to be wet. So a bit of a spanner thrown into our works here, so we're going to probably struggle a little bit in qualifying. So hopefully we do go into qualified 2. I'm not sure about the simulated times at this track. Obviously in Moto 3 they're really broken. So if they are broken, we probably won't get through, which will be really bad because qualified is going to be wet. So I'm hoping that we actually can do something decent in qualifying, because if you remember back to last year, Chang and Austria, we struggled so much. So we'll get into qualifying now. Hopefully we're in Q2, and hopefully we can put something good together. So we are indeed in Q2, actually still top of the timesheet, so it does seem like the glitch is not present in Moto2, which is really, really nice. So I'm top of the timesheets ahead of Sam Lowe's in second place, Aaron Canet in third, Chandra fourth, and Navarro in fifth. We're coming through Q1, then we've got Salach, Dixon, Jeremy Alcoba, and Albert Arenas. So Salach was actually pretty high up in that session we did FP3, so maybe the times are still a little bit quicker in the simulations, but not that much quicker than it managed to dethrone me. But this is going to be very, very tough. I've not ridden the Moto2 in the rain at all. I've done very little wet running in general, to be honest. Obviously, you saw last year how much we struggled in the rain, so it's going to be a bit of a tough one, I reckon. But if we just go out, keep trying to do some laps, it probably won't be too bad. Obviously, it's not a session that's wet track, so the fastest times aren't going to just automatically come at the end of the session. But once I'm bedded in a bit more, I'm able to do some better lap times. I've also just realised I've got to do wet with no traction control as well, which is always super, super fun. I'm hoping I'm a little bit more on the pace. The fact that this is a track where the AI struggle in general is probably going to play to my favour a little bit. But I reckon the AI are going to have a big upper hand because they always seem to have more grip than the player. They can always turn better as well. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, when you play Moto 2, well actually when you play any of the categories, I think the AI always have like all the assists, so all of the traction control and stuff, like they have all the electronic settings. Obviously that's something the player can enable. They can put the traction control on. I think the AI have that to some extent regardless of what setting you use. So into the penultimate turn then, about to start our first lap. I've gone a bit hot in there. Honestly, I thought it was going to be the rear tyre that's the issue, but I just remembered that really it's the front that's actually the issue in the wet conditions. This game's very front limited anyway. The front always feels like it's about to go, but in the rain you can't even push it at all. It just is so bad, and that's how you kind of make the lap time on this game, is by pushing the front. So yeah, I think we are going to struggle a lot. We've got Alcoba behind us. Well, Alcoba's gone up the inside of us. That shows you immediately what kind of pace we're on, because we've been overtaken by a rider that I'm surprised is even in Q2, to be honest. So coming towards the line, it's not been a great lap because Alcoba, we battled a little bit, he got back in front of me, so we've got 9th place, almost a second off. But this is really, really weird, this session, because if you look at Alcoba, there's like no spray coming off his tyre, which is a bit weird, because I'm sure usually there is spray coming off the tyres in this game, so it's really, really dodgy that there's no spray coming off his, because there is definitely some coming off of my tyre. We've got to find quite a bit of time, because obviously we're a second off almost, so this is going to be one of those sessions where I reckon we are going to be right at the back. I've really pushed on this lap to try to improve. Oh, I've only improved by a couple tenths of a second. I'm still last, only 7 tenths off pole position now. But it's just not going to be enough, I don't think. I might have to come back to the pits for a fresh set of wet tyres. But I'm just struggling so much. I've got no pace compared to the AI. I reckon we're going to be starting 18th to this race, to be honest. Oh, lovely. Lovely. I've gone back to the pits, and Ben Schneider's done a very legitimate time, 1 minute 44.5. You can see that I'm still 2 tenths off of Renas, so I think the other riders haven't. Bobier's jumped up, so has Agora. So perhaps there's some riders there that have done some glitch simulated times, but what is that, a 44.5? Like, I know I'm slow, but I was only like 7 tenths off pole before, and now I'm 4.8, just because I came in to get a new set of tyres. Oh, they need to fix that bug. They so need to fix that bug. This lap's been pretty good up towards the line. I've got on the grass after it. 7th place. Oh, that's one hell of an improvement. Still 3.9 off Bo Ben Schneider, but I feel like his time is illegitimate. I'm not sure exactly where they'd pull a 44.5 from. Like, maybe a wet track, but 4 seconds? I don't think so. I really think that that is just a slow dry time. It's very, very bizarre. Almost as if maybe he was partway around the lap, and then he simulated the last couple of seconds or something at dry speed. That probably would be what happened, because then like, he's gained 4 seconds, which would be about right, probably, to be honest. So that's the end of the session, pretty much then. 30 seconds to go. So it looks like we're going to be starting 7th on the grid, which could have been a lot worse. I reckon we could still win the race from there. And to be honest, looking at the times, it almost looks as if actually the top 5 have all had a glitch, because you can see there's 3.8 seconds then. There's 2 seconds between Acosta's time and Fernandez's time. And that just doesn't seem quite right. So I think in terms of the legitimate times, we're actually 2nd place there, which is very, very nice. I don't know whether some of these other guys probably had quicker times previously to that. You can see a 44.5 for Ben Schneider there, 44.9 for Agora, 45.6 for Bobier, 45.8 for Chantra. I almost could believe the 46.4 if everybody else wasn't so far off, but the 46.4 obviously is bugged as well because it's 2 seconds clear of his teammate, so not quite sure why the top 5 have got ridiculously fast times, but it doesn't matter too much. We know that we've got a good shot of winning this race. We were quick in practice, we were quick here in Moto 3, absolutely pulled away and dominated in that race, and also we know that AI are not great off the line, so from 7th place on the grid, I reckon we've got a good chance of fighting for the win in a dry race. So we'll head down to the grid now then, and hopefully we can get off to a good start. So then we're down here on the grid looking at Iagora in 2nd place. Well, now we're looking at Manu Gonzalez in 20th. But honestly, I'm not 100% sure which tyre to go with. I think I'm just going to play it safe and go with the medium tyre. But honestly, I'm not 100% sure. Obviously, I've not done that much running, so I don't know what tyre is going to work here. This is usually a pretty abrasive circuit. But so far throughout this career mode, medium has been the way to go. It's also what's been recommended to me, so that does back it up a little bit, although the hard rear I think is being recommended. But again, I'm just so put off the hard rear from that one race in Qatar all those weeks ago. It could be fixed now, or it could have just been a weird issue with that particular race, but it put me off trying the hard tyre ever again. So we've got to try and get the top 5 because we failed the qualifying objective, and if we fail the qualifying and race objective 2 weekends in a row, that's not looking too good for us. We also need to gain some points back in the championship, and unfortunately some of the riders ahead of us in the championship have got glitch times there. So we're actually behind a lot of our championship rivals, so we need to get off to a good start here and absolutely send it into the first corner.
Formation lap complete, and riders are lined up on the Termas Rio Hondo front straight. Just a few more seconds and we'll get going in the Argentine Grand Prix.
So then Ben Schneider pole, Agora second, Bobier in third place. The lights are on, waiting for the lights to go out here at Termas. Lights out and away we go. And honestly, the AI's start wasn't too bad this time, to be honest. So maybe they fixed that in the update that came out the other day. And Sam Lowe's had a hell of a start, actually. And we've got a track limits warning into the first corner already. And I've locked the rear up a little bit on the way in. So it's actually been a terrible start. We've lost positions off the line, which I didn't expect at all. I thought I'd absolutely send it on the AI. Gained so many positions. We've passed Dixon. We're up the inside of Augusto Fernandez. Couldn't quite pull off the move there. I'll tell you what, who had the best start? Sam Lowe's. Don't know where he came from, but what a start he had. So swoop around the outside of everybody. We've got the cutback here on Augusto Fernandez. So much more grip compared to the wet weather there through that corner. We've got past Fernandez. Used a little bit of Power Mode 3 as well. Although Fernandez has now got the draft from Acosta. So he seems to be getting past us again. But on the brakes, up the inside of both the IA riders. I'm going to try and get up the inside of Acosta as well. But Acosta's still turning in. Fair play. He's got the position. We've managed to pass Augusto Fernandez. So that's one of them out of the way. Back up to my starting position. Again, using a lot of fuel. They seem so slow through this section of the track. I know where they are pretty bad, though. It's on the brake, so we might want to get them into here. Up the inside of Acosta. Looking at the inside of Chantra as well. The championship lead. A bit of contact with Chantra. Obviously, don't want to have him off or anything because he is my rival currently. She's leading the World Championship after a very good first couple of races. Lowe's right ahead of us. The guy that got the amazing start up the inside of Sam Lowe's. So we're just going past him like the sun is still in this section of the track. So back up to 4th place. I've turned the power mode back down. Don't want to run out of fuel, of course. I'm known for doing that from time to time. But Bobier stretching the lead out a little bit. Ben Schneider in second. I feel like Ben Schneider is the odd one out here. I mean, in the last game, he had a really good performance compared to his actual real-life performance. We're going around the outside of Agora. What is this? We've actually just gone round the outside of Agora. I just did that to avoid him. We've actually just pulled off the pass on Iagora. So up to 3rd place, around the outside. This is still 120% AI, by the way, guys. I've not changed the difficulty. I actually checked after practice because I was a little bit worried. And it is still 120. So it just seems like they are super, super weak at this circuit, except in the rain. Although I'm really bad in the rain on this game. They'll have a massive advantage. And I was only a 10th off them once I put a good lap together. So yeah, it seems like it could be a race where we win quite easily. But the tyre wear could play into it, so I've got to watch out for that. I can't even remember what I was saying before now. I think I was on about Ben Schneider. His performance being a little bit better than it should be, really, in the games compared to real life. Last year he had really good performance. Seems like he's got pretty good performance this year too. But I was going to say I think he might hold up the pack because I think Bobier's AI is probably better in this game than Ben Schneider's. What the inside on the brakes of Ben Schneider. Easy move up to 2nd place. Didn't second guess myself like I did on the previous lap trying to pass Acosta and Fernandez at the same time. If I brake later on that lap I could have passed Acosta. But up to 2nd place now. So there's nothing to worry about at all. The start wasn't quite what I expected it to be. We're up to 2nd place, 7 tenths behind Bobier, and we are clearly the fastest rider on track by probably at least a second. So I think we should be able to pass Cameron pretty easily. So right onto the back of him now. He pretty much kept that gap up until that corner. So you can just see how much they're losing on the brakes. It almost reminds me of Le Mans, and I suppose we did pull away by like 6 seconds in this race last year, so it does make sense that they are super, super slow. We completed 2 laps, so we're still in 2nd place. Braked on the curb into turn 1 again, just be careful not to lose the front. I can run a bit wide. Again, I've got a pretty big gap back to Ben Schneider already. But to be honest, we should be able to pass Bobier probably into turn 4 at the end of the back straight. And then I think we'll just check out from there because we seem to have really good pace compared to him. Although he has just put a bit into us through that section, so maybe it's not quite as easy as I think it's going to be. So here we are then, we're pretty far back. We should still be able to make that stick on Bobier just about. In fact, actually, yeah, I still turned in early, so even though I was probably half a second behind him going into that corner, I've just made the pass on him absolutely easily. That's the problem with AI in this game. Some tracks, they just brake ridiculously early for some of the corners. Doesn't matter what difficulty you put them on, they always do it. Like I've said, obviously it's still 120%. I've not changed it. And I have checked. It's not like in the past where I've thought it's on 120 and it's reset itself. It really still is, so I have no idea. I guess this is why we pulled away so much in Moto 3, but if you ask me, that's this game's biggest problem, is the AI. They're kind of stupid at times, but they're just so inconsistent from track to track, and they have such big flaws. You can talk about the physics all you want, and there definitely is some issues there, but the AI is by far the biggest problem and has been for quite a long time. So half a second clear of Bobier already, he's still hanging in there. He's done a 41.6. So We should be able to just pull away from him now if I make no mistakes. Just coast it to the last couple of laps. I need to actually look at the tyre wear. Tyre wear is actually looking really good. So, yeah, just ride it. Just keep it rubber side down. And that should be our second race win of the season. So that's like the final lap of the race then. 1 minute 41.1 on that lap. And it's the first time the fastest lap's actually popped up on the left-hand side. It's not been there the whole race. So it's nice to see. We've got just under 2 seconds to Bobier, sorry. So I'm not actually quite as far in front as I thought I would be. I thought I would have pulled further away than this based on how much I was catching them earlier on in the race. But it's just such a shame because their pace through sectors 1 and to be honest sector 4, most of the sector is not too bad. The pace on the whole track is not terrible. It's just like there's 3 corners where they lose like the whole time. This being one of them here at the end of the straight. I think it's actually turn 5 because I think there's like a second kink on the straight that's technically turn 4. But coming into here, this is where they lose all the time. They lose, well, you saw they lost half a second. I was half a second behind Bobier coming into this corner and I passed him. I made a big mistake there. Fortunately, I still got 2 seconds behind, otherwise he'd be making a pass on me. Oh, there's been a crash as well. Not sure who that is. Doesn't seem to be Chantra or Fernandez, the top 2 in the championship, so it's not too big news for me. But yeah, so like I was saying, there's that corner as well actually there. So there's turn 7, turn 5, and then the penultimate turns where they lose all their time on the lap. They're actually quite fast around the rest of the track, which is interesting. They're not great through there either, turn 9. Basically, all the heavy braking zones, they lose a lot of time. But it's not the case that the AI is a little bit weak on the brakes. Like, they are losing half a second in their braking zone. That's a ridiculous amount of time to lose on what's supposed to be the most difficult AI in the game. So it's a bit of a shame. But I'm not going to really complain too much. I've got a win out of it, and we really needed that after getting knocked off in Mandalika. So here we go then, through the final turn, up towards the line, 2 wins from 3. What a start to Moto2 it's been. So then, in the end, winning by 2.3 seconds clear of Cameron Bobier in second place. Bobench started 3.8 seconds behind in third. You can see the fastest laps are not terrible. Obviously, I've got about a second over most of the field, but it's not as bad as I thought it was going to be. I mean, my pace probably wasn't what it could have been. I probably could have pushed a bit harder. Vietti's actually retired, so I think it's Vietti that's crashed. Barry Bolter's pretty far down the order as well, and I think he was doing pretty well in free practice. So I think, to be honest, Bolters and Vietti might have had a bit of a crash there. But that's pretty good for our championship, because Chantra ended up finishing in 6th place. So Sam Lowe's actually got in front of Chantra at the end there. So Sam Lowe's, the fast starting Sam Lowe's, helping us out there, even though on the first lap he didn't cut me up, but he just caught me off guard the way he just sort of sliced through, and I went on the curb, got the track limits warning. It was not a great start, but it was a pretty easy to manage race from there. They were just too slow. So then, in the championship standings, we've retaken the lead. All the damage from Mandalika has already been undone. Chantra 4 points behind us there in the championship. 6 points back is Fernandez, and 17 back is Cameron Bobier. So overall, we've only lost 1 point in the episode. Obviously, we came into it with a 5-point lead over Fernandez. Leave it with 4 points over Chantra. Not too bad overall. You can't complain too much. We've actually gained a point on Fernandez out of all this, which is quite crazy, really, considering we got knocked off at Mandalika. Salach did pretty well out of this episode as well. Obviously, winning that race in Mandalika, but he didn't do too well in this race. So the AI performances do seem a little bit weird and up and down, because Lowe's was nowhere, wasn't he, in the first race, and still wasn't really anywhere that much in the second or third races either. Well, third race he was there in the top 5, but the other races, not really. So the AI performance just seems so off. I mean, Vietti, championship leader in real life, is 13th place in the championship. Alright, he's had a crash, but I think he's only had 1. He's still only got 9 points, so... And Canit's 16th, so the AI performances in this just so far wrong. It's so strange. Chantra's about the only one that's about right, and he's dropped off in this season now anyway. Same with Bobier. Looking at the Teams Championship then, we haven't actually been able to take that lead back from the Idemitsu Honda Team Asia team, because of course my teammates are not there to back me up. We've got 71 points. To be fair, I've only scored 50 of them, so they have at least put 21 points. They've almost put half of what I've put. I think Joe Roberts scored pretty well in one of the races, but second place there, only 1 point behind, so it's really close in both the Teams and Riders Championships. It could change at any second. But with that race done then, that pretty much rounds off the episode, so we'll head back to the Career Hub, see what we got from this weekend, and then end off the episode. So we actually didn't lose any reputation, because you don't lose reputation for not meeting the qualified objective, it seems. We got through to Q2, so we got 500 reputation. We just didn't get the bonus for actually getting the second row. But in the race, of course, we won the race, so we got 7,500 reputation overall, which takes us up to 111,000 exactly. And on the credits front, of course, we know that only depends on the race result. So first place, meeting the team objective, 13,890 credits. I'll absolutely take that. That takes us up to 301,547. As for the development test then, you can see we've passed pretty much all of them. Tyre test, we weren't able to do that because that required us to do laps on the hard tyre, the soft tyre and the medium tyre. and I didn't want to spend all day just doing practice trying to do that, so I didn't bother with that one. Without force, we failed that because, well, I was doing lap by lap. I was really close to the time, I wasn't going to quite beat it, so I just straight lined it to the line. And obviously, once I'd gone over the line, I was on the grass, so I just fell off immediately. But I got the practice program there, so we still gained some things. So we've got 467 on the engine now, 860 on the frame, and 667 on the electronics. Speaking of the upgrades, we actually have a notification here. I think that's a frame upgrade coming in. So we've got 50% off the frame upgrades on. I don't think there's anything we could do, though. We can't actually, we can't put another upgrade on, but we can put them back onto the research data, on the production of the research data. So we can stick everybody from the frame on there. So we now get 300 per week from that, so that's pretty nice. But with no more notifications then, that pretty much brings this episode to a close. So I hope you guys have enjoyed that one. Two very contrasting weekends there. Obviously at Mandalika, struggling for the pace all weekend really, managing to put a decent-ish qualifying lap together, getting a really good start, be able to sort of hang on to the AI. Unfortunately, we had the contact at the penultimate turn, I ended up on the floor. But the race had been pretty good up to that point. We'd really ridden above what I could do. Whereas at Argentina, we had a really good pace, qualified poorly because of the wet. Actually, it wasn't that poor, to be fair, it was only P7. I actually didn't get a very good start. We actually lost more from the start than the qualifying, so I dropped down to 9th at one point on the first lap. But then we just calmly cut our way through the pack. We had so much pace over everybody, got to the lead, pulled a gap of a couple seconds, and then just coasted to victory. So two very contrasting races there, but quite a bit of action in both. So I hope you guys did enjoy that one. Hope you enjoyed the rest of your day. Hope you'll stay safe, and I shall see you in the next one.